Every time I walk into a hearing, I notice the same tactics that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen narcissistic and toxic individuals use outside of court. It's just that it's wrapped in legalese. Hey, Survivor! Welcome to episode 129 of the Vibrant Survivor podcast. Today, we're going to talk about courtroom defense tactics that twist reality to protect narcissistic and toxic individuals. Now, you may not be in a courtroom yourself, but many of us know all too well the pain of watching someone who harmed others intentionally get defended with manipulation instead of facts. So we're going to talk about it. But first, let's self-regulate with a 4-4-8 breathing exercise, if you'd like. We'll inhale for 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 8. Ready? Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How does it feel to center yourself? Grab your notebook and pen, and let's dig in. Hey, Survivor! Welcome to the Vibrant Survivor podcast. Do you want to disconnect from a narcissistic or toxic situation and heal? Are you Googling how to identify a narcissist, narcissistic abuse, and boundaries? Are you feeling stressed and lonely while trying to avoid being sucked back in and lied to again? Hey, I'm Lesley. As a busy wife and mom, I fell for the lies and manipulations of narcissists. I wasted my time, talents, and money on users who kept moving the goalposts. I wanted real relationships and business opportunities and to enjoy life with my family. Instead, I struggled with anxiety, panic attacks, and insomnia, and I couldn't trust my body or anybody until I took a holistic approach to healing. In this podcast, you'll find tips for healthy living, trauma healing, and boundaries so that you'll have the freedom, confidence, and inner peace to respond, not react, after narcissistic abuse. Take a deep breath in, let it out slowly, and just relax. This time's for you. Survivor, I've mentioned before that I've been attending criminal court hearings for probably the last year plus, and every time I walk into a hearing, I notice the same tactics that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen narcissistic and toxic individuals use outside of court. It's just that it's wrapped in legalese. For example, I've talked about the juvenile arson trial, and there was a guilty verdict that was determined last week. And in that trial, I saw how the defense team contorted the facts and tried to protect the image of the juvenile and really shield this young man from natural consequence, basically, and not really uphold the truth. So let's walk through 5 of the most common tactics I've witnessed and how to stay grounded when you see them unfold. Number 1, wrongfully representing relationships. They're friends. They go to church together. He went on vacation with their family. They were classmates. He wouldn't want to hurt his friends. This literally happened. And these kinds of statements, these wrongfully representing statements, are designed to blur the lines of harm with false familiarity. And for survivors, this can create guilty feelings. It can create confusion, like, wait, what? Or just internalized doubt, like, okay, well, maybe that's true, and maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way, or maybe I'm overreacting. And in this type of situation, it's so important to remind yourself that association does not equal alignment, and that truth does not need proximity. And you can allow yourself to know what you know and to see who and what you're dealing with for what they really are. Number 2, minimizing and mislabeling. It was a prank. Boys will be boys. Oh, that was just stupid locker room talk. Just poor judgment. These types of things can shroud threats, misogyny, and fire setting or arson and reframe them as immaturity. And for survivors, this is gaslighting. And it can cause you to question your own response or reaction to danger. And it's very, very dangerous too, because the minimizing and mislabeling can really dampen your ability to see who is a threat and who is a safe person, and really misjudge in your relationships. And it doesn't even have to be in a context of like a trial or anything like that, but just even on the job, in your neighborhood, even in your own family. So it is important to call the behavior that you see what it is and not sugarcoat it. And know that accurate labeling is a trauma healing tool, and it will help to keep you grounded in reality. I was talking to the state prosecutors after the trial ended, and we were talking about the defense's fire expert who was brought in to provide his expertise or lend his expertise to how the fire might have started and so on and so forth. And literally the whole game was to poke holes in the fire investigator's work and to get him to doubt his statements and to make him look like, an immature newbie that really didn't know what he was doing and that got, hired on the fire investigation team, because of a relative, right? So that's a whole nother story. We'll get to that in a minute. But basically, he was, making all these statements and everything, and he literally minimized some of the statements. We were talking about intent, or they were discussing intent, and we were talking about some of the statements that were made prior to this mortar getting thrown at this building that had teenagers in it. And there were some really misogynistic statements that were made towards these kids, especially the girls. And this gentleman, who was quite old, actually, minimized it as being locker room talk. And I was telling the state prosecutors, I'm like, it was misogyny. And they're like, absolutely. So it was kind of nice to hear them, validate what we all heard and saw happening on the witness stand in terms of the defense's efforts to try to minimize things and to try to poke holes and throw shade and really cast all these seeds of doubt about how the fire started. So call behavior what it is. Again, allow yourself to know what you know, and don't be afraid to label it for what it is. And that's part of your healing, and it will also help you to be able to identify, navigate future situations and make better choices in terms of relationships and who and what you're dealing with. Number 3, blame shifting onto victims. Ugh, they provoked him. They're so dramatic. They're out to get attention. They're trying to get money. And it's just, it is a sad time when the abuser becomes the victim and the victim's made to look like the abuser. Isn't it? And saw this again in the arson case, just, making it seem like, oh, the juvenile is just this innocent person who didn't mean any harm and all this stuff, and was friends with the victims, and just this pretense of just not knowing oh my gosh, well, what do you mean? And what, I don't know what happened. And the suggestion that the victims even started the fire was made, which was just really outer limits. And there was a real strong effort being made to try to pin it on the victim. Surely they were doing something. They were vaping, they were doing something inside, and they started the fire and blah, blah, blah. And it was terrible. And for victims, that creates feelings of shame, especially, kids are hanging out with their friends and, and maybe they're not perfect, but, the defense is going to try to dredge up any and everything that they can. Like, hey, if you've ever, smoked before, vaped before, done anything remotely, bad or less than stellar, trying to suggest that and lump all that together or conflate all of that into, well, surely you must have done something that started this fire. And it can be isolating, whether it's within the context of your immediate relationships or within the greater community. And we saw this too during the arson trial, where the defense was trying to pit the victims against each other by kind of getting them to tell on each other on the stand to create conflicts within their relationships and create division so that they wouldn't be unified in their stories and, and in the way that they were presenting. And also just to undermine their relationships in general. Very, very spiteful move. And in addition to that, a lot of the victims had experienced some challenges and alienation or isolation, even at school, because a lot of these victims went to school together. And there were feelings of loneliness and just the isolation or just getting blamed, even in the context of a greater community. And that's really painful. And I know that the victims all experienced within the greater community just a hard time, because a lot of people who weren't informed about all the intricate details or really made the effort to do a deeper dive into all the facts of the case. And some of that is because everything couldn't be shared because it was, juvenile case and all of that, but people who weren't willing to even do the deeper dive kind of took things at face value. So any efforts made to smear the victims or to blame shift are more likely to stick when people aren't willing to do their own research and fact finding. So for you, survivor, that can be re-traumatizing. It's like you're going through it all over again. In addition to what you've already suffered, you're also being alienated. You're being painted to be this bad person when you were minding your own business and trying to enjoy time with your friends and family before all hell broke loose. So for you, just know that your courage to speak, whether it's on the stand or whether it's to speak your truth, whether it's to power or to the other person, that it's not vengeance. This is justice in motion, and you deserve to be heard. And your truth is powerful. Not only is it powerful within the context of your own relationships, but your truth and you standing 10 toes down will positively impact others and empower them to stand firmly in their truth. Number 4, discrediting or devaluing witnesses. She's emotional. Oh, she's biased. They're biased. They have a personal issue or axe to grind. They're out to get me or us, or he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's new. He doesn't know what he's doing. He didn't do a good job or a thorough job. The defense will try all kinds of tactics to suppress truth by attacking the messenger or messengers. And specifically, they will try to discredit even expert witnesses. You could be a professional, like, say, for example, the fire investigator in the juvenile arson trial. This guy has been doing this. He clearly knew his stuff. And I told him he had the patience of Job while he was on the witness stand. And not only that, he got called up multiple times. And every time the defense was trying to poke holes in his investigation, get him to, just backtrack on some of the things that he said, or, get him to fumble and stumble, question his investigation, doubt himself, or just the blatant disrespect. He has a relative on the fire investigation team, and they were trying to just be disrespectful by taking little jabs at him. They were referring to, his higher up as, his relative, and really trying to be disrespectful with it and paint him out to be this newbie that didn't know what he was doing and that was young and just inexperienced and didn't do a thorough investigation. And he was this guy did not break. Like he stayed consistent in his story. He stayed consistent with his findings from the investigation. It was amazing and it was inspiring. And I think that this is a good lesson for all of us as survivors, and to really know and see this for what it is, the attempts to silence you and to get you to doubt yourself and doubt your reality. So just know that the truth is not diminished by emotion or, scare tactics or, just tactics to get you off your game. And you don't have to be perfect in order to be believed. And consistency matters and truth matters. Number 5, delay, distract, and deceive. Oh my gosh. So this could come in the form of constant objections, dragging out trials, like literally dragging out the date of the trial. And for example, listing a bunch of witnesses just to block them from talking to each other or talking about the case. And we saw this in the arson trial where, the defense was constantly objecting to things. Even when the state prosecutors were making their closing arguments, they were given a certain amount of time, or they were expected to end at a certain time. And I'd say maybe 10 minutes or so before or 15 minutes before they were supposed to end their remarks, the defense attorney was interrupting, and Your Honor, aren't they supposed to be wrapping up their remarks, or how, don't they only have a certain amount of time that they're supposed to have for their remarks? And they still had 10 or 15 minutes left. And it was just so disruptive and just disrespectful. And I saw it right away as a tactic to throw them off, to get them flustered, stumbling, fumbling, and also, too, just to cut into their time, because it created a dynamic where suddenly the defense attorney was in conversation with the judge during a time that was marked for the state prosecutors to make their closing remarks and presentation. And they did an incredible job, but it was disruptive, and I saw it for what it was. But this is all about chaos and control and manipulative tactics to really, gain an edge or gain an advantage. Say, for example, if the state prosecutors, if enough time had been eaten away, and the state prosecutors had more to say than there was time left, then it would have disrupted and impacted their closing remarks. Now, it wasn't, and they finished early, but the defense didn't know that. And so being disruptive, it created a situation where it could have threatened the state's ability to complete their arguments. And then for survivors, it's exhausting. And again, it's re-traumatizing. And, you're leaning on, say, for example, the state to, present an airtight case and to really uphold the truth and to fight for you in a sense. And you've got, a defense attorney interrupting and trying to, play games and poke holes and drag things out, delay, stall. and, hurl all these tactics at the situation. And it can be re-traumatizing or kind of create a sense of anxiety or panic, like, is justice going to be served? And, that's on top of just any other emotional depletion. Maybe you're sleep deprived. Maybe showing up at court has cost you time, money, things that you can't get back, like your time in particular. And a protective move for you, survivor, would be to just anticipate these kinds of distractions, these kinds of delays, there being maybe some extra dates added. And now these were all court approved, but a lot of the delay or the reason that the whole trial dragged out, for example, an arson trial, as long as it did, was because of the defense. And they tried to spin it later and play victim off of it. Well, our expert witness was sick and blah, blah, blah. And well, as you know, our expert witness only had so much time to prepare. Like, they'll spin it as from a victim standpoint, but then they'll also use it aggressively and as a tactic to throw everyone off their game. It's so important through it all, in addition to anticipating delays, distractions, and chaos and all of that, to regulate through, routines and through support. Have your people nearby, have your people ready to support you afterwards, even if they're unable to appear in court. And just know that it's a lot of noise and, it's loud and it's obnoxious, but it eventually fades. So the stress that you may feel in situations like this, survivor, is very real. And, your body can react, when you are afraid and anticipating what's coming even before it happens. And that's very real, and it can impact your health and well-being. That toxic stress can lead to chronic illness, and that's not good for you. And you need to be aware of that. Your brain is constantly scanning for threats, and, your body and your brain are trying to protect you and keep you safe. So know that there's nothing wrong with you. Something's happened, and your body and brain are responding and reacting to that. And know that these courtroom tactics that I'm describing mirror abusive cycles in narcissistic and toxic relationships: the love bombing, the devaluation, the discarding, and the hoovering. And your body keeps the score, even when you fight hard to stay in a logical space. And that's not strange. There's nothing wrong with you. That is totally normal. And you choosing to be calm, choosing to balance your brain and body through self-regulation techniques and through nutrition, through movement, doesn't make you weak, or just even allowing yourself to feel what you feel and ride out the emotional waves. That is not a weakness. It actually makes you powerful, and it helps you to learn and grow. And it makes you more aware of your body and also your surroundings and your relationships. And that can be a good thing. So know the tactics ahead of time so that you're not caught off guard. And also you can document what you see and hear. You can, well, maybe not in court, but you can put a note in your journal or in your notebook or in your planner, a note in your phone. And also ground yourself before and after court, maybe even during court. You might need to take a bathroom break and just do some deep breathing, like the breathing we do on the podcast every week. And you may need to take in some water, take a little walk, spend some time outside, breathe some fresh air, maybe even listen to some relaxing music, say if there's a break during court. Or if you're at work and you're dealing with a toxic situation on the job, you may need to do that. and that's okay. Don't try to argue with the spinning that takes place and the bending of the truth and the misrepresentation. Stand in your truth. The narcissist may have a stage, a spotlight, and a defense team, but you have something so much more powerful, the truth, groundedness, or the ability to ground yourself, and the courage to show up, even when it's hard. And if you're listening to this, you've already done the hard work. You have survived, and now is your time to rise. And people are watching, and you have the ability to inspire them too. So to all the survivors who speak up and have spoken up, your voice echoes so much more powerfully than any manipulation by the narcissistic or toxic individual ever will. Remember, they stall, spin, and smear to dodge their shame, but strength and truth outlast the game. Thanks for tuning in, survivor. Your truth is powerful, so share it boldly and courageously. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey, survivor! Are you tired of feeling exhausted, stressed, lonely, and stuck in narcissistic relationships, and you just want closure and healing? I spent years rationalizing toxic relationships and dysfunctional environments in the name of community, connection, and career. As a result, I wasted my time, talents, and money on users who kept moving the goalposts. One of the worst was an alleged murderer who discarded me after I caught him lying, stopped helping him for free, and held my boundaries. Even though I dodged a bullet, I felt depressed, ashamed, and I doubted myself. I want you to know that you don't have to suffer in silence, feel alone, or crazy anymore. Come and experience the power of creating your own closure without the permission or participation of the narcissist. I've been no contact for over 4 years now, and I've grown personally and professionally. I have more clarity, stronger boundaries. I'm building a life and business that I've always wanted and enjoying real relationships. I know you want to break patterns of getting into toxic relationships, even if you don't mean to. And it feels so good to disconnect from dysfunction, set and hold boundaries, provide closure for myself, and focus on self-care, and to empower my kids to do the same. Go to closurecoachingsession.com right now and get ready to heal after narcissistic abuse. If this podcast has helped you understand who and what you're dealing with, sharpen your discernment, and move forward on your healing journey, share it with another survivor. Help me help others by leaving a review for the show. And let's connect on social. Take a screenshot, share it in your IG stories, find and tag me at The Vibrant Survivor, and I'll share your post too. I look forward to connecting with you on IG and seeing you back here. You're not alone and you're not crazy. Know who you're dealing with, know who you are. Take care, and I'll meet you back here next week. Bye-bye.